Let's see here. It says it's setting up live. I hope. We should be live.
It says you're live.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Skiba, Executive Artistic Director for Cleveland Opera Theater. Welcome to our Friday Masterclasses online. This week, we're really excited to have Director Eve Summer with us. Eve's a fantastic director, an artist, and human being, directs all over the country, does some fantastic work. You can stalk her on Facebook and online. And she will be working with two singers today, Dawna Warren and Alexis Reed. So take it away. I'll be around if you have any questions or need me, but enjoy and have a great time. So Dawna, could you say who you are and what you're going to sing and all that?
Of course, I wasn't sure if you was going to talk or me. Hello, I am Dawna Ray Warren. I am a master's student at the University of Kentucky. I am a color soprano. And today I would like to present Caro Nome from Verdi's Rigoletto. I'll just start my track here. We're having technical difficulties. Well, the track was slower than I was. Oh no. Okay.
Great, lovely, really, really lovely. Oh my gosh, lovely. And what a crazy challenge to to make that happen with a track. And it felt really beautiful and spontaneous. So really, really lovely work.
Thank you.
All right, let me turn this up. So here's I think the beginning was really beautiful. I think probably the hardest thing in this aria is the interlude before the aria proper. I think it's probably the most terrifying thing to do because it's so long, and especially in an audition, when you do the full production, hopefully your director's got like 17 bits of business for you to do.
Yeah.
But when you're not in that situation and when you're presenting it, I mean, I really, I think when you give an aria at a concert or in an audition scenario, it really wants to be its own special standalone entity.
Yeah.
Obviously, the panel or your audience is going to connect it to the piece, it's going to connect it to the whole opera if they know it. But at least personally, and everybody's different, but I am more forgiving with something that doesn't feel 100% maybe exactly the way that would be in a full production, in order to create something that feels complete in that moment and fully fleshed out. And, whether it's what your character would do or not in a full production, but that you have thought about all of that in this context. So I think what was great was that for the first half of that interlude, it was really, really lovely. And I was following your internal monologue. It was really in the moment, really truthful, but it's really hard to keep that alive. And for the second half, I sort of started to lose my connection to you. And I started to be waiting for Caro Nome, just like you were.
Yeah.
And so that's when you've lost us, and that's really hard. It's almost, you're fighting. It's like you've already lost the benefit of the doubt when you start the aria. If we were just waiting for it to begin instead of so engaged by you, during that interlude.
Yeah.
So you did really great work motivating the beginning. But here's something that I would love to challenge you to do is to think about that whole interlude, and rather than sort of reacting, responding to the music, reflecting it, give yourself an entire storyline, an entire monologue in your head, an entire memory to live through, and don't feel like you have to maintain the feeling of the music. You can move, breathe, think, giggle. You can be counter to the music and let us in a little bit to who you are, Dawna, as somebody who's not just sort of dancing along, waiting for the aria proper to start. So what do you think? I mean, what is happening in that interlude? Obviously, this is something that, every soprano has to think of, that why did he write this long interlude? Is it, remembering that moment when you first saw him? Are you reliving seeing him at church? What is the moment for you? Like, what is that interlude for you, Dawna?
For that interlude, I think she is so frozen in time up until that interlude, where it's that moment where you can't react, because your body is stuck in whatever just happened. She described like, oh, like, this is the man I would love if only he were this kind of man. And then in comes this man that's like, hello, I'm exactly this man. And I'm like, oh my God, this is meant to be. Like, he's perfect. Waiting for his name. I hear the name. I'm frozen. I'm like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And she's so young and she's so innocent. She hasn't really experienced this before. And so I feel like this whole interlude of the music is her for the first time experiencing that anxiety that is infatuation.
So can you make it into something more concrete in your mind.
Yes.
Put that infatuation, which I love, that's really lovely, and put that into something concrete where we can experience with you all of those, that beautiful, you just described the most beautiful arc, but can you take us through that during that interlude? And then, so the question is two-part, then what motivates you to actually begin the aria proper? What motivates you to actually open your mouth again to say caro nome? Because that time exists, yes? Even if you're frozen, you sing, you say, you let his name escape, your lips, and then you stop. And then what is the thing that makes you say it? There isn't an answer. Yeah. But what is it for you? Is it
I think that whole bar and a half at the end before she sings, it's winding down. She's catching her breath again. Like these previous measures, she's pretty much been having that hyperactive, like oh my gosh, like kind of like, what's the word? Not asthma, but
yeah, you sort of like hyperventilate a little bit.
Hyperventilate. Yes, that's exactly the that hyperventilation of the butterflies, and she's like, why am I palpitating? Calm it down. She realizes it's him. She calms down enough to think about it again, and then she sings.
So what you just did was so beautiful, and if you incorporate that, just the way you just showed me, I think it'll be really lovely. I think the feeling too that I just got from you when you were describing it to me is it was so personal and so internal. And that's something that, makes a big difference for me as the audience, that it doesn't feel presentational. It doesn't feel like, and the interlude wraps up and I say the thing you've been waiting for me to say. That if I watch you, going through all of those personal things, and then you're surprised even that you...
Yes, the spontaneity of the interlude.
We've all heard the aria, right? So many times, and if you're giving it an audition too, they've heard it so many times and everybody's waiting. So if you actually let us be surprised with you, if you can keep that spontaneity in that interlude, then you have us sold. It's such a easy place to lose us, but you can win by showing us how much you are her. Yeah?
Yes.
And so then as you begin, can that whole first line be even more of a surprise that you've even spoken it?
Yes. Yeah.
Can we just try from let's just try from the, well, I guess we're going to go from the top of the recording now.
Yeah. Let's you know what, this has done nothing but make me feel very thankful for my collaborative pianists.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. They need to pay. I'll pay them anything they want. Anything. My firstborn.
Yeah.
Okay. It's loading. That's fine. I have another one. It's fine. We're good. Back up.
Yes, lovely. Oh, lovely. That was great. That was really, really great. And you know what? I wasn't waiting. It didn't feel too long. It didn't feel like I was waiting for the next thing. I'll give you one like little basic general thing is to just careful to not get your hands into what I call like choir
Praying. Oh
choir praying singer pose.
It's my baritone claw.
I do that all the time when I'm feeling contemplative. You know, it's just one of those little things that for me, I think a lot of directors now, as we're sort of in a world where we expect more truthfulness and more realism. I know I do. That's what connects me to you as a person. And whenever I get into like singer choir pose, then I lose it. But that was really, really, really beautiful. Okay, so moving forward, if such thing is possible with our recordings. So I wonder what I would love to see, whether it's a clear arc or a clear difference between each of the returns of the Col Pensiers. So what I loved was that at the very end of the aria was a really very, very clear confidence that you'd grown at the end of the aria. So the overarching arc I saw, and that's great work. I think it was a bit of a surprise though at the end. I would love to see it take a bit more time, and then as it steps, use each of those returns to rather than feeling sort of who am I, what's my body, a little bit cheeky about all of them, to find a little bit more of a differentiation between them so that it's a more natural progression to that place of confidence, which I thought was really phenomenal at the end of the aria. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just making it more gradual.
I think so. I mean, that third, like super sexy désir, right? Like I think you can lean into that even more. But if we're gonna do that, then you know, the first time around, do we want to feel more innocent? I think the first time it felt the least innocent. Which I think is also okay. Yeah, which I think is okay, but then maybe the second goes back, maybe the second feels more self-conscious. Do you know what I mean? I think it all felt all of a sudden this sort of, oh my goodness. And if we can let that take over one or two, whether, and there's no right answer, you know, it's your interpretation. But, you know, if you feel really good about starting to discover who you are the first one, then maybe the second one is, you know, where you feel, I don't want to say self-conscious like other people are looking, you self-conscious like you're looking, or the, you know. But that then you can build back up that confidence again. Because I think it's great to really lean into that really sexy third désir. What do you think? Do you think you feel more, do you think you gravitate towards wanting to be more in touch with your new feelings bit by bit and build that confidence? Or
I think it makes sense in the arc of things. I think if you look at the way rhythmically every cold pincette is differently, you know, like she either jumps right into it or she lets like 2 whole bars happen before she sings it, or so I definitely think she dips her toe into the water of her sexuality.
Yes.
And that's what this whole aria is. It's not a baptism by fire.
No, and you can do it just like you did. You know, never be afraid of your own natural physicality. Yeah. You know, and never be afraid, like, as you feel like dipping your toe, like what you just did is a beautiful thing. You know, anybody can. You know, but when I learned so much about you as an artist and about your interpretation when you tell it back to me in your own physical vocabulary, and it makes me so happy because you're connected to it and it's so interesting. You know, so I love that. So maybe do just dip your toe that first time. Give yourself a, I hate the word gesture, but like a physicalization of that. Like when you just described it to me, it was so lovely, and it was toe dipping. Can we try how doable is finding places in there?
Well, I can do my best. I'm flexible if you don't mind me.
Yes.
Where would you like to go?
Well, I mean, let's go from. Maybe let's just go from the aria proper. That seems like an easier.
Yeah.
I don't know what your.
Let's see what I can
device is.
It's so great. It's better than a MIDI, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
No.
I mean.
Oh, here we go. We'll just have to do the interlude again. That was the wrong one.
Yeah, oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. And then now all your little, I call those the birdie ahas, are more motivated. Like they came from, they're coming sort of right on the heels of your toe dipping. I love it. Yeah. Oh, and I loved your sexy désir there. Yeah, that was really beautiful. Oh, I think I always take forever. Yeah, that was really, really beautiful work. And it was so connected. And I mean, I really, I don't know, I lost track of time and I wasn't waiting for anything. And that's sort of my rubric, you know, if I'm just enjoying you. And, you know, ultimately, if I can lose myself and not be waiting for what's next, then for me, it's successful. So that's really, really great work. Really beautiful. It was really lovely to hear you and to work with you a la Zoom.
I will mute myself.
All right, Alexis, are you feeling good?
I am.
Thank you, Dawna. Great job. Great work.
Absolutely.
Alexis, if you could just introduce yourself, say where you are, where you're from, what you're singing, that'd be great.
All right. I am Alexis Reed. I am currently residing in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am in my 5th year at Oberlin College and Conservatory, and I will be singing Quando men Beau from Puccini's La Boheme. Oh, 1 second. The Bluetooth disconnected after that bit of time. My apologies.
No worries.
Bluetooth signal connected.
There we go. Now you know.
Great, lovely, really lovely. Awesome. Okay, so I have this sort of in the same vein as what I was talking about with Dawna about feeling like it's okay to sort of reinterpret maybe the way you would interpret in a full production to give us the most of you and the most of Musetta in this scenario. I would love to see your third section, right? Your Marcello section. If you're in a full production, of course, it would be very, sort of gridded, sort of, trying to still keep up the nice face for everybody else. But I would love to see all of the range of like the things that you're trying to express rather than sort of quelling them for the public around, because I think I would love to see more diversity in each of the verses, which, in full production is a really different thing. But in this short piece, I would love to see more diversity from you. And so, I think that confidence in the first section, which is getting everybody's attention, right? Look at me, right? It's great. I loved Soletta per la Via. That was very cheeky. It was adorable. I liked a hair flip. Make sure if you're gonna do a hair thing that you only touch it once. Mm-hmm. Because that it's part of your character or it's part of your moment that you're not touching your hair in audition human. But I loved the one good one, like that you had one really purposeful one that I enjoyed. It felt to me like when you finish the first verse, right after Da capo a pied, it's almost like you threw it away. You gave a little shrug. And I think it felt two things. One, I feel like it accented the music so much, it almost threw away the work that you did rather than leaning into it. It gave me a sort of like, and that's the end of that verse kind of thing. And I would have loved to see, I would love to see you dig into her confidence there, moving into the second verse rather than to sort of be done with that one and starting again. So here's my question to you. In the second section, I would love to see you give that more, to feel more personal about that, so that you have this like, rather than the whole thing being so presentational, that your first verse is this, look at me, like the most confidence. And then your second section can feel more personal and you can luxuriate it in it a little bit more.
It feels very self-indulgent rather than performative.
Exactly. And it gives you a different, physical vocabulary, a different color, a different everything that you show us, that you can command the room, and then that you have broad and deep feelings and, really, your own, lush vocabulary of thought and music beyond the smashing plates, everybody look at me version of myself, right? And then I think that I would love to see, not that I think you need to direct it more specifically at your, like I see your Marcello is to your right. Yeah. Not that I think it needs to physically direct to him more, but that I think you can lean into it being for him and it being a challenge. So rather than it being a secret from all the other people on stage, it's a challenge so that you can show us that third broader vocabulary for your voice, the music, your physicality, in all of this, in this short amount of time. Does that make sense? Let's try it again.
Okay.
great. Okay, great. I love the first verse, and it might seem like a little thing, but your confidence feels 10 times more when you don't throw it away after that da capo a pie. Now, let me challenge you to just get one step ahead of the second verse, to let that feeling wash over you before you start to sing. So that rather than singing and it reminding you that this is your new vibe, that you finished da capo a pie, and whatever that feeling is motivates the music. Yeah. Can we take it from, I don't know, it's so short. You can go from the beginning or just to get into the second verse, however your device makes that.
Yeah, here's Da Capo a Pie if you want me to start right from there.
Yeah, perfect.
Da capo a pie. Ed assaporo allor labbra così sottil che dai occhi prospera ed ai palesi vezzi intender sa agli occulti verità così fluio del desiderio tutta m'aggira felice mi fa felice mi fa e tu che
Yeah, great, 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 great. Love it. Now, I think that was beautiful. And it was very personal until you got to your Felice mi faz, and then it felt presentational again. You dip back into your, so when do you want to, now that we've sort of put off Marcello until the third section almost entirely, we still need to find him before E tu che sai, right? So when do you want to find him on your repeated Felice mi fa?
I wanted to find him on the last one to get some more like that last one or extra emphasis because it's quieter. I think
Yeah.
quiet, she spots him and then she knows what she's gonna do.
Let it motivate the musical change in the repeat, right? So your first Felice mi fa, don't take it back into the land of presentation. Just feel happy, and then can you see him as you finish your fa, and let that color your second Felice mi fa, so that you're already on the train to the third verse there. Yeah, let's find a place.
Oh, there it is, right there.
Just give yourself a little bit of time so you can really feel those two Felice mi fas. Yeah, the first one, personal. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, hold please, or something. Yes, I love that. And actually, now I want to even lean into that more because I love that it felt hot and cold almost. Let's try that. That's really fun that you were so having a moment to yourself. And then when you saw him, it sort of steeled you.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Let's do that same place.
Thank you. All right.
Great. Yes, gorgeous. But now keep your focus. That was so beautiful and it was so directed and pointed. So you get the second Felice mi fa was really lovely and you zeroed in. I think it's great to zero in on him more on the diagonal and less to your right so that now you can have a new focal point. And that's great. Now you've trained in on him. So just, give it to him.
Yes,
All right, same place.
You have the third verse?
Yeah. From the first Felicia Mi Fa. I think that's our good. Great. So here's what I think. I think now you're thinking about this a little bit differently, and I love it. I'm not muted, right? Yeah, okay. So I love you zeroing in on him. Now, if you just do this for me, is keep your stance, your physicality going forward. So when you started, you had this very sort of like back in your heels, the world waits for me, everybody think I can stand here forever. It's great. And then now, once you've keyed in on him, you've got so much energy going towards him. There's just one moment where you sort of step back into it. Like you lost your power in that moment. So keep your dart, your energy pointing at him, because it's great. And then I think the same. I think your end of your aria is very different than you started. And I think it should be. Don't throw it away at the end and turn it back into a presentation. Give us that last moment for what it is. To change your focus in the last beat feels, I think, too false. And maybe in the production you'll do a high kick or something, but for now, you've showed us these three beautiful different sides of her, and I want to relish in that actual emotional thing, because plenty of sopranos will come in and do this when they do Quando Men Va, So let's just do one more time from the last Felice Mi Fa, or the first Felice Mi Fa, through the third section, and really keep it about, really give him all your energy.
Yes, will do.
Okay. Yes, if I wasn't muted, you would have heard my big yas. I love it. I really love it. That was great. That was a lot of fun. How do you feel? Do you want to try and put all three of your ladies together? It's a short piece, so I keep making you sing it over and over again. Shall we try and link together our star of the show, not throwing our way the end of our first section, being really in our own luxurious world until we key in on him, and then keeping him in our sights until the end. Okay, let's do it. great. That was so much fun. I loved it. And I really went on like a real arc with you. So I very much enjoyed that.
Yeah, I agree. This piece is always like a lot of it seems like it's the same idea you're trying to play over and over again. So I love the diversity and the journey that you've helped me make Musetta go on, because it is
Awesome.
all of her. She's so multidimensional. So that's it's
Yes.
this what seems one-dimensional, like get all the aspects of her character.
It's so easy for this piece to just feel like an opportunity to just go like this, you know. But especially when you're presenting it out of the context of the opera in a recital or in an audition or something, you want to show so much. And I mean, I think so in full production too, you want to show a lot. But yeah, that was really, really fun. I loved it. I loved the transformation. So really great work. Okay, look at that, Scott. I did it. And
Good job, Eve. Really nice work.
look at that timing.
Great job, Lexi. Great job, Dawna. Dawna, Lexi, or anybody who's watching along here, do you have any questions for Eve? Or Eve, do you have anything to share? Not everybody at once.
I have a question. So Eve, so you're a person who sits on a lot of audition panels. What would you say is the #1 turnoff that a performer can give when they enter a room or begin their pieces?
To be honest, the whole the enter the room and the not do the right thing, or to water bottle or not to water bottle, or all that. Like when you start singing, I don't really care about any of that stuff that went before. I think for me, I'm looking for that je ne sais quoi,
Yeah.
I'm looking for somebody who has really interpreted. I often, if I'm able, if there's time, depending on the process, depending on the audition schedule, like to give a direction in an audition to see how, just to see how you take direction, not necessarily because that's the direction I'm going in. But what's the most interesting to me, especially when you're doing, stuff from the standard repertoire, is for me to see like a real perspective. So from the first note, that I see somebody who is interesting and has created an interesting character. So starting like hand on the piano, I'm like, ugh. Or, starting with a pose, or, I want to get to know who you are as an artist, and I want to work with artists who have something to say. So really just being yourself, not being yourself, is the thing that sort of turns me off. Seeing people step into that sort of like opera pose, or, let me turn on my character, or, just sort of, anything that feels inauthentic. I think you'll probably hear it like once someone opens their mouth, for the most part, a lot of the decision gets made within a few seconds sometimes. Yeah. If you act like there definitely, I've had the experience where someone comes in and acts like a really insane person. And then you're like, whoa, do I want to be in a room for 3 weeks with someone who comes in like, hello? And, like a whole crazy story about what happened to them in the hallway. But I think that's like pretty much common sense. Like, how to like carry yourself like a human being, then any other like little, etiquette faux pas don't bug me. But I think inauthenticity is such a huge turn off for me. There's so many, jewel tone dresses and hairspray and black pumps, and like it's not that you're not supposed to do that, but your black pumps aren't going to make the difference between, just seeing a person who seems like they have something to say, and like they, for me, I love opera more than anything in the world. It makes me so freaking excited. And I haven't really done this in like 50 days. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to be back in the studio. But, you know, being around people who, I mean, if you're around me for a minute, you can tell that I love it and that it excites me. And being around people who also seem excited and happy to be there and to have something to say, being around someone who comes in like, this is the 17th time I've sung this and here's my thing and I miss profesh. I'm like, okay, great. But, you know, being authentic and having something to say, that's like for me, the key.
Yeah. What would you, sorry to ask another question. What would you say your views on, you know, listing your FOC specifically? Like, does the FOC a person writes on their resume ever impact your decision? Like whether it's, oh, well, the repertoire they're not performing doesn't really, I mean, the repertoire they're performing doesn't really line up with this. Like, how does your understanding of FOC affect your casting decisions?
So for me, it doesn't not really make much of a difference to me. I will say that like if your rep list is completely different than your resume or what you're like, if it's vastly different and it's obviously like if you've got like 5 pieces that are all, you know, Sue Brett, and then you're like, by the way, last year, I mean, I don't know, like people feel really strongly about it, and I'm just looking for, I don't know, someone who can, if I'm looking to cast a role, then that's what I'm looking for. But I also like, I don't teach at a school. I don't cast for programs. I don't cast for young artist programs. I don't cast for, you know, if I'm sitting on your panel, I'm looking at you for this part, like personally in my experience. So I've never sat on a panel for anything other than like a competition or to cast someone in a show I'm directing, period. So I would say that maybe I'm like, people feel very strongly about it and I don't, and I'm not the one who usually cares about your FOC. I'm like, oh, you can sing this part that we're doing and you're great. Like that's all I care about.
How often would you say that previous audition seasons impact like the current year's casting decisions? Like, do you remember like previous auditions? Do you ever think of like, oh, that singer from however many, you know?
So yes, unfortunately, I do not have the good answer for you that you want. The answer is I remember everything.
Well, that's good and bad.
Yeah, it's good and bad. It's good that I will recognize you. It is bad. Do not audition for something that you are not ready for, because I will remember and I will always remember you in that way. And I would love to say that like, oh, a fresh face, come in, but no. I have a really good memory, and I do, you know, if someone comes in and auditions for something that they're really not right for or they're really not ready for, and then they come 3 years later, I'm like, oh my God, that person can't sing that. I remember that audition. So I would say to like be
prudent.
Be prudent. You know, it's not not conservative, you know, but definitely be prudent, because I definitely do remember those things. And those impressions stick with me. And in that same way, impressions stick with me, like if you're in a production with me, and I have a bad, like you don't learn your music, or, you know, you have a really bad day and you decide to snap at me in front of everybody. And, you know, I definitely remember those things. You know what, here's something. Actually, I was just thinking about this. When was I? Oh, I was thinking about this like twice this season. I just like put into words this feeling that I think people a lot of the time, you know, we get this sense about directors that, you know, that they just sort of get to say what they want and they're just going and just doing. But we are you know, in that same way that you're a singer and you're a sensitive artist, and if someone makes a criticism of you, you might remember it forever. Or if, you know, you sing a bad audition, you might remember it. Or if you say that really weird thing in an email to someone that one time and you think about it 2 years later, you know, we are like that too. And when we're in rehearsal, it might not seem like we're vulnerable, but it is a very vulnerable thing to direct an opera, because we're putting our hearts and souls out there. So we also are vulnerable artists with feelings. And I think it's something that, you know, directors, I think also because the sort of styles have changed. There's a lot less shouting and go here, do that, and a lot more collaboration. And I think a lot of directors want to collaborate with artists. I know I do. And so the way that, you know, the way that you interact with me in a rehearsal, if you're, you know, 22 and covering, if you're singing a principal role, like I remember those things always. And if somebody was rude to me or snapped back at me if I gave a note, I remember that thing because I'm a human being with feelings as well. And those things, just as much as like a little dig or a little something that you take personal, you might remember. We remember those things too. And we remember them, you know, when we're casting.
Yeah.
It's not to say like, you know, be perfect, be prim, or try and handle us. It's just that, yeah, I want to be around people I like to be around.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's so good to hear, because I mean, we hear such contrasting things. Like there's one team that says, be prudent in your auditions. And there's another one that says, you know, no asking, no getty, audition for everything you can.
And honestly, you know, it's such a subjective, the industry, like it's so subjective, and it's completely different from director to director and music director to music director. And, you know, the weight of people's choices on panels, you know, sometimes you know, there are tons of productions where I'm not involved at all and I get who I get. There's some where I'm, you know, casting the whole show. They're just, it's so different all the time. Yeah. And the dynamic in the room is different all the time. I think, you know, if you love this music and you love this art form and you just do your work and are a good colleague, it says a lot. Yeah, I mean, you can drive yourself crazy trying to do the right thing. You can drive yourself crazy trying to wear the right thing and to say the right thing and to, you know, in my first life, my first career, I was a professional ballet dancer, and then I was an actress and a director, and it's a totally opposite in ballet and in straight theater. You just audition for everything. It does not matter. You know, no one remembers you, no one cares, and you could have absolutely zero skill set and just be like, oh my God, you are beautiful, you are Juliet, you know. Like, it's totally different. So my mindset, like in the beginning, when I first started directing opera, I was just so surprised by that sort of conservatism about not showing people what you're not ready for, because I grew up with that attitude too, like just go get them, just reach for the stars and just keep going, just audition for everything, do everything. And that's what I did. Yeah. But I very quickly learned that all those things people were saying, I was feeling that I was remembering those things about people, that when someone came and auditioned for me for something they really weren't ready for, then they came back and I saw them 2 years later, I was like, what are you doing here? This is, you know.
No. So the growth doesn't take precedence.
No, I mean, you know, I think you have to use your common sense, because you can never figure the people in this business out. I can't either, you know, I mean, the reason why I get hired and don't get hired, you know, sometimes there's a really good reason. Sometimes it's like super arbitrary. Sometimes it's like, oh, such and such is sick. Can you direct Don Giovanni in 3 days? You know, um, which has happened. You know, no, you can't get caught up on that stuff. One thing, and I also, if you guys have my contact information now, and feel free to reach out to me. Not that I'm telling y'all go have babies or anything, but I'm really passionate about talking to people about existing in this industry as a parent, and one thing that I will say that having kids did for me as an artist was I stopped trying to figure everything out so much because I was so busy with the kids that I stopped trying to dissect every single choice I made in the industry. I was like, well, this is what I have to offer. So I'm going to offer it. And it's amazing that when I stopped dissecting everything and agonizing over the way I presented myself, agonizing over every email, agonizing over every interaction with an artistic director, and just said, you know what, I mean, I'm not going to be a schlub, but I'm just going to, like, this is who I am. Things got really easier for me in a lot of ways. So just give yourselves a break. You know, you guys are wonderful artists. You know, just for the hour I spent with you, you're beautiful singers and you're wonderful people and you were really receptive, and just keep on keeping on like that. And you'll go far. And if you don't, it won't be because you didn't wear the right shoes or put the right Fock on your resume, in my humble opinion. But
Well, thank you for the tough answers that we needed to hear, and
my pleasure.
you know, for the honesty.
Yeah, my pleasure. And feel free to reach out anytime, because all I'm doing is making ham and cheese sandwiches over here right now.
Can I get some of those for delivery?
Yeah.
Well, Eve, thank you so much for joining us.
That's my
Dawna,
pleasure.
Lexi, thank you both so much for singing and for taking the time. And thanks for everybody who joined us here on Zoom and joined us on Facebook. And hope everybody's staying safe. And thanks for coming together to make some art and do some things that are beautiful and stay healthy.
Yeah, thanks for making a wonderful night for me. It was really great to be in the studio, you know, and just to do some art today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eve.
My pleasure.
Everybody.
Thank you.